The 5 precepts are negative. They tell you what not to do. They don't tell you what to do. The 5 precepts are the basis of Buddhist morality. They are not all of it. We start by recognizing our bad behavior and striving to stop doing it. That is what the 5 precepts are for. After we have stopped doing bad, we then commence to do good. Take, for example, speech. The Buddha says we should start by refraining from telling lies. After that, we should speak the truth. Speak gently and politely, and speak at the right time. He says, giving up false speech, he becomes a speaker of truth, reliable, trustworthy, dependable. He does not deceive the world. Giving up malicious speech, he does not repeat there what he has heard here, nor does he repeat here what he has heard there, in order to cause variance between people. He reconciles those who are divided and brings closer together those who are already friends. Harmony is his joy. Harmony is his delight. Harmony is his love. It is the motive of his speech. Giving up harsh speech, his speech is blameless, pleasing to the ear, agreeable, going to the heart, urbane, liked by most. Giving up idle chatter, he speaks at the right time, what is correct, to the point, about Dhamma, and about discipline. He speaks words worth being treasured up, seasonable, reasonable, well-defined, and to the point. Number 5, Rebirth. Where does man come from, and where is he going? There are 3 possible answers to this question. Those who believe in a god or gods usually claim that before an individual is created, he does not exist. Then he comes into being through the will of a god. He lives his life and then, according to what he believes or does during his life, he either goes to eternal heaven or eternal hell. There are others, humanists and scientists, who claim that the individual comes into being at conception due to natural causes, lives, and then at death ceases to exist. Buddhism does not accept either of these explanations. The first gives rise to many ethical problems. If a good God really creates each of us, it is difficult to explain why so many people are born with the most dreadful deformities, or why so many children are miscarried just before birth, or are stillborn. Another problem with the theistic explanation is that it seems very unjust that a person should suffer eternal pain in hell for what he did in just 60 or 70 years on earth. 60 or 70 years of non-belief or immoral living does not deserve eternal torture. Likewise, 60 or 70 years of good living seems a very small outlay for eternal bliss in heaven. The second explanation is better than the first and has more scientific evidence to support it. but still leaves several important questions unanswered. How can a phenomenon so amazingly complex as consciousness develop from the simple meeting of two cells, the sperm and the egg? And now that parapsychology is a recognized branch of science, phenomena like telepathy are increasingly difficult to fit into the materialistic model of the mind. Buddhism offers the most satisfactory explanation of where man came from and where he is going. When we die, the mind, with all the tendencies, preferences, abilities, and characteristics that have been developed and conditioned in this life, reestablishes itself in a fertilized egg. Thus, the individual grows, is reborn, and develops a personality, conditioned both by the mental characteristics that have been carried over and by the new environment. The personality will change and be modified by conscious effort and conditioning factors like education, parental influence, and society, and once again at death, reestablish itself in a new fertilized egg. This process of dying and being reborn will continue until the conditions that cause it, craving and ignorance, cease. When they do, instead of being reborn, the mind attains a state called nirvana. And this is the ultimate goal of Buddhism and the purpose of life. How does the mind go from one body to another? Think of it being like radio waves. The radio waves, which are not made up of words and music, but energy at different frequencies, are transmitted, travel through space, are attracted to and picked up by the receiver, from where they are broadcast as words and music. It is the same with the mind. At death, mental energy travels through space, is attracted to and picked up by the fertilized egg. As the embryo grows, it centers itself in the brain, from where it later broadcasts itself as the new personality. Is one always reborn as a human being? No, there are several realms in which one can be reborn. Some people are reborn in heaven, some are reborn in hell, some are reborn as hungry ghosts, and so on. Heaven is not a place, but a state of existence, where one has a subtle body, and where the mind experiences mainly pleasure. Some religions strive very hard to be reborn in a heavenly existence, mistakenly believing it to be a permanent state. But it is not. Like all conditioned states, heaven is impermanent, and when one's lifespan there is finished, one could well be reborn again as a human. Hell, likewise, is not a place, but a state of existence, where one has a subtle body, and where the mind experiences mainly anxiety and stress. Being a hungry ghost, again, is a state of existence, where the body is subtle and where the mind is continually plagued by longing and dissatisfaction. So, heavenly beings experience mainly pleasure. Hell beings and ghosts experience mainly pain, and human beings experience usually a mixture of both. So the main difference between the human realm and the other realms is the body type and the quality of experience. What decides where we will be reborn? The most important factor, but not the only one, influencing where we will be reborn and what sort of life we shall have, is karma. The word karma means action and refers to our intentional mental actions. In other words, what we are is determined very much by how we have thought and acted in the past. Likewise, how we think and act now will influence how we will be in the future. The gentle, loving type of person tends to be reborn in a heaven realm, or as a human being, who has a predominance of pleasant experiences. The anxious, worried, or extremely cruel type of person tends to be reborn in a hell realm, or as a human being who has a predominance of painful experiences. The person who develops obsessive craving, fierce longings, and burning ambitions that can never be satisfied tends to be reborn as a hungry ghost, or as a human being frustrated by longing and wanting. Whatever mental habits are strongly developed in this life will continue in the next life. Most people, however, are reborn as human beings. So we are not determined by our karma. We can change it. Of course we can. That is why one of the steps on the Noble Eightfold Path is perfect effort. It depends on our sincerity, how much energy we exert, and how strong the habit is. But it is true that some people simply go through life under the influence of their past habits, without making an effort to change them, and falling victim to these unpleasant results. Such people will continue to suffer unless they change their negative habits. The longer the negative habits remain, the more difficult they are to change. The Buddhist understands this and takes advantage of each and every opportunity to break mental habits that have unpleasant results, and to develop mental habits that have a pleasant and happy result. Meditation is one of the techniques used to modify the habit patterns of the mind, as does speaking or refraining to speak, acting or refraining to act in certain ways. The whole of the Buddhist life is a training to purify and free the mind. For example, if being patient and kind was a pronounced part of your character in your last life, such tendencies will re-emerge in the present life. If they are strengthened and developed in the present life, they will re-emerge even stronger and more pronounced in the future life. This is based upon the simple and observable fact that long-established habits tend to be difficult to break. Now, when you are patient and kind, it tends to happen that you are not so easily ruffled by others. You don't hold grudges. People like you, and thus your experiences, tends to be happier. Now let us take another example. Let us say that you came into life with a tendency to be patient and kind, due to your mental habits in the past life. But in the present life, you neglect to strengthen and develop such tendencies. They would gradually weaken and die out, and perhaps be completely absent in the future life. Patience and kindness being weak in this case, there is a possibility that in either this life or in the next life, a short temper, anger, and cruelty could grow and develop, bringing with them all the unpleasant experiences that such attitudes create. We will take one last example. Let us say that due to your mental habits in the last life, you came into the present life with the tendency to be short-tempered and angry. And you realize that such habits only cause you unpleasantness, and so you make an effort to change them. You replace them with positive emotions. If you are able to eliminate them completely, which is possible if you make an effort, you become free from the unpleasantness caused by being short-tempered and angry. If you are only able to weaken such tendencies, they would re-emerge in the next life, where, with a bit more effort, they could be eliminated completely, and you could be free from their unpleasant effects. You have talked a lot about rebirth, but is there any proof that we are reborn when we die? Not only is there scientific evidence to support the Buddhist belief in rebirth, it is the only afterlife theory that has any evidence to support it. There is not a scrap of evidence to prove the existence of heaven, and of course, evidence of annihilation at death must be lacking. But during the last 30 years, parapsychologists have been studying reports that some people have vivid memories of their former lives. For example, in England, a 5-year-old girl said she could remember her other mother and father, and she talked vividly about what sounded like the events in the life of another person. Parapsychologists were called in, and they asked her hundreds of questions, to which she gave answers. She spoke of living in a particular village in what appeared to be Spain. She gave the name of the village, the name of the street she lived in, her neighbors' names, and details about her everyday life there. She also tearfully spoke of how she had been struck by a car and died of her injuries 2 days later. When these details were checked, they were found to be accurate. There was a village in Spain with the name the 5-year-old girl had given. There was a house of the type she had described in the street she had named. What is more, it was found that a 23-year-old woman living in the house had been killed in a car accident 5 years before. Now, how is it possible for a 5-year-old girl living in England and who had never been to Spain to know all these details? And of course, this is not the only case of this type. Professor Ian Stevenson of the University of Virginia's Department of Psychology has described dozens of cases of this type in his books. He is an accredited scientist whose 25-year study of people who remember former lives is very strong evidence for the Buddhist teaching of rebirth. Some people might say that the so-called ability to remember former lives is the work of devils. You simply cannot dismiss everything that doesn't fit into your belief as being the work of devils. When cold, hard facts are produced to support an idea, you must use rational and logical arguments if you wish to counter them, not irrational and superstitious talk about devils. You say that talk about devils is superstition, but isn't talk about rebirth a bit superstitious also? The dictionary defines superstition as a belief which is not based on reason or fact, but on an association of ideas, as in magic. If you can show me a careful study of the existence of devils written by a scientist, I will concede that belief in devils is not superstition. But I have never heard of any research into devils. Scientists simply wouldn't bother to study such things. So I say there is no evidence for the existence of devils. But, as we have just seen, there is evidence which seems to suggest that rebirth does take place. So, if belief in rebirth is based on at least some facts, it cannot be a superstition. Well, have there been any scientists who believe in rebirth? Yes, Thomas Huxley, who was responsible for having science introduced into the 19th century British school system, and who was the first scientist to defend Darwin's theories, believed that reincarnation was a very plausible idea. In his famous book, Evolution and Ethics and Other Essays, he says, "In the doctrine of transmigration, whatever its origin, Brahmanical and Buddhist speculation found ready to hand the means of constructing a plausible vindication of the ways of the cosmos to man. Yet this plea of justification is not less plausible than others, and none but very hasty thinkers will reject it on the ground of inherent absurdity. Like the doctrine of evolution itself, that of transmigration has its roots in the world of reality, and it may claim such support as the great argument from analogy is capable of supplying." Then Professor Gustav Stromberg, the famous Swedish astronomer, physicist, and friend of Einstein, also found the idea of rebirth appealing. Opinions differ whether human souls can be reincarnated on Earth or not. In 1936, a very interesting case was thoroughly investigated and reported by the government authorities in India. A girl, Shanti Devi from Delhi, could accurately describe her previous life at Mutra, 500 miles from Delhi, which ended about a year before her second birth. She gave the name of her husband and child and described her home and life history. The investigating commission brought her to her former relatives, who verified all her statements. Among the people of India, reincarnations are regarded as commonplace. The astonishing thing for them, in this case, was the great number of facts the girl remembered. This and similar cases can be regarded as additional evidence for the theory of the indestructibility of memory. Professor Julian Huxley, the distinguished British scientist who was Director General of UNESCO, believed that rebirth was quite in harmony with scientific thinking. There is nothing against a permanently surviving spirit individuality being in some way given off at death. As a definite wireless message is given off by a sending apparatus working in a particular way. But it must be remembered that the wireless message only becomes a message again when it comes in contact with a new material structure, the receiver. So, with our possible spirit emanation, it would never think or feel unless again embodied in some way. Our personalities are so based on body that it is really impossible to think of survival, which would be in any true sense personal, without a body of sorts. I can think of something being given off, which would bear the same relation to men and women as a wireless message to the transmitting apparatus. But in that case, the dead would, so far as one can see, be nothing but disturbances of different patterns wandering through the universe until they came back to actuality of consciousness by making contact with something which could work as a receiving apparatus for mind. Even very practical and down-to-earth people like the American industrialist Henry Ford found the idea of rebirth acceptable. Ford was attracted to the idea of rebirth because, unlike the theistic idea or the materialistic idea, rebirth gives you a second chance to develop yourself. Henry Ford says, "I adopted the theory of reincarnation when I was 26. Religion offered nothing to the point. Even work could not give me complete satisfaction. Work is futile if we cannot utilize the experience we collect in one life in the next. When I discovered reincarnation, it was as if I had found a universal plan. I realized that there was a chance to work out my ideas. Time was no longer limited. I was no longer a slave to the hands of the clock. Genius is experience. Some seem to think that it is a gift or talent, but it is the fruit of long experience in many lives. Some are older souls than others, and so they know more. The discovery of reincarnation put my mind at ease. If you preserve a record of this conversation, write it so that it puts men's minds at ease. I would like to communicate to others the calmness that the long view of life gives to us." So the Buddhist teachings of rebirth does have some scientific evidence to support it. It is logically consistent, and it goes a long way to answering questions that theistic and the materialistic theories fail to do. But it is also very comforting. What can be worse than a theory of life that gives you no second chance? No opportunity to amend the mistakes you have made in this life, and no time to further develop the skills and abilities you have nurtured in this life. But, according to the Buddha, if you fail to attain nirvana in this life, you will have the opportunity to try again next time. If you have made mistakes in this life, you will be able to correct yourself in the next life. You will truly be able to learn from your mistakes. Things you were unable to do or achieve in this life may well become possible in the next life. What a wonderful teaching! Number 6, meditation. What is meditation? Meditation is a conscious effort to change how the mind works. The Pali word for meditation is bhavana, which means to make grow or to develop. Is meditation important? Yes, it is. No matter how much we may wish to be good, if we cannot change the desires that make us act the way we do, change will be difficult. For example, a person may realize that he is impatient with his wife, and he may promise himself, "From now on, I am not going to be so impatient." But an hour later he may be shouting at his wife, simply because, not being aware of himself, impatience has arisen without him knowing. Meditation helps to develop the awareness and the energy needed to transform ingrained mental habit patterns. I have heard that meditation can be dangerous. Is this true? To live, we need salt. But if you were to eat a kilogram of salt, it would kill you. To live in the modern world, you need a car. But if you don't follow the traffic rules, or if you drive while you are drunk, a car becomes a dangerous machine. Meditation is like this. It is essential for our mental health and well-being, but if you practice in a stupid way, it could cause problems. Some people have problems like depression, irrational fears, or schizophrenia. They think meditation is an instant cure for their problem. They start meditating, and sometimes their problem gets worse. If you have such a problem, you should seek professional help. And after you are better, then take up meditation. Other people overreach themselves. They take up meditation, and instead of going gradually, step by step, they meditate with too much energy for too long, and soon they are exhausted. But perhaps most problems in meditation are caused by kangaroo meditation. Some people go to one teacher and do his meditation technique for a while. Then they read something in a book and decide to try that technique. Then, a week later, a famous meditation teacher visits town, and so they decide to incorporate some of his ideas into their practice. And before long, they are hopelessly confused. Jumping like a kangaroo from one teacher to another, or from one meditation technique to another, is a mistake. But if you don't have any severe mental problem and you take up meditation and practice sensibly, it is one of the best things you can do for yourself. How many types of meditation are there? The Buddha taught many different types of meditation, each designed to overcome a particular problem or to develop a particular psychological state. But the two most common and useful types of meditation are mindfulness of breathing, anapanasati, and loving-kindness meditation, metta bhavana. If I wanted to practice mindfulness of breathing, how would I do it? You would follow these easy steps. The 4 P's: place, posture, practice, and problems. First, find a suitable place, perhaps a room that is not too noisy and where you are not likely to be disturbed. Second, sit in a comfortable posture. A good posture is to sit with your legs folded, a pillow under your buttocks, your back straight, the hands nestled in the lap, and the eyes closed. Alternatively, you can sit in a chair as long as you keep your back straight. Next comes the actual practice itself. As you sit quietly with your eyes closed, you focus your attention on the in and out movement of the breath. This can be done by counting the breaths or watching the rise and fall of the abdomen. When this is done, certain problems and difficulties will arise. You might experience irritating itches on the body or discomfort in the knees. If this happens, try to keep the body relaxed without moving and keep focusing on the breath. You will probably have many intruding thoughts coming into your mind and distracting your attention from the breath. The only way you can deal with this problem is to patiently keep returning your attention to the breath. If you keep doing this, eventually thoughts will weaken, your concentration will become stronger, and you will have moments of deep mental calm and inner peace. How long should I meditate for? It is good to do meditation for 15 minutes every day for a week, and then extend the time by 5 minutes each week until you are meditating for 45 minutes. After a few weeks of regular daily meditation, you will start to notice that your concentration gets better. There are less thoughts, and you have moments of real peace and stillness. What about loving kindness meditation? How is that practiced? Once you are familiar with mindfulness of breathing and are practicing it regularly, you can start practicing loving kindness meditation. It should be done 2 or 3 times each week after you have done mindfulness of breathing. First, you turn your attention to yourself and say to yourself words like, "May I be well and happy. May I be peaceful and calm. May I be protected from dangers. May my mind be free from hatred. May my mind be filled with love. May I be well and happy." Then, one by one, you think of a loved person, a neutral person, that is, someone you neither like nor dislike, and finally, a disliked person, wishing each of them well as you do so. What is the benefit of doing this type of meditation? If you do loving kindness meditation regularly and with the right attitude, you will find very positive changes taking place within yourself. You will find that you are able to be more accepting and forgiving towards yourself. You will find that the feelings you have towards your loved ones will increase. You will find yourself making friends with people you used to be indifferent and uncaring towards. And you will find the ill will or resentment you have towards some people will lessen and eventually be dissolved. Sometimes if you know of someone who is sick, unhappy, or encountering difficulties, you can include them in your meditation, and very often you will find their situation improving. How is that possible? The mind, when properly developed, is a very powerful instrument. If we can learn to focus our mental energy and project it towards others, it can have an effect upon them. You may have had an experience like this. Perhaps you are in a crowded room and you get this feeling that someone is watching you. You turn around and, sure enough, someone is staring at you. What has happened is that you have picked up that other person's mental energy. Loving kindness meditation is like this. We project positive mental energy towards others, and it gradually transforms them. Do I need a teacher to teach me meditation? A teacher is not absolutely necessary, but personal guidance from someone who is familiar with meditation is certainly helpful. Unfortunately, some monks and laymen set themselves up as meditation teachers when they simply don't know what they are doing. Try to pick a teacher who has a good reputation, a balanced personality, and who adheres closely to the Buddhist teachings. I have heard that meditation is widely used today by psychiatrists and psychologists. Is this true? Yes, it is. Meditation is now accepted as having a highly therapeutic effect upon the mind, and is used by many professional mental health workers to help induce relaxation, overcome phobias, and bring about self-awareness. The Buddha's insights into the human mind are helping people as much today as they did in ancient times. Number 7. Wisdom and compassion. I often hear Buddhists talk about wisdom and compassion. What do these two terms mean? Some religions believe that compassion or love, the two are very similar, is the most important spiritual quality, but they fail to develop any wisdom. The result is that you end up being a good-hearted fool, a very kind person, but with little or no understanding. Other systems of thought, like science, believe that wisdom can best be developed when all emotions, including compassion, are kept out of the way. The outcome of this is that science has tended to become preoccupied with results and has forgotten that science is to serve man, not to control and dominate him. How otherwise could scientists have lent their skills to develop the nuclear bomb, germ warfare, and the like? Religion has always seen reason and wisdom as the enemy of emotions like love and faith. Science has always seen emotions like love and faith as being enemies of reason and objectivity. And of course, as science progresses, religion declines. Buddhism, on the other hand, teaches that to be a truly balanced and complete individual, you must develop both wisdom and compassion. And because it is not dogmatic, but based on experience, Buddhism has nothing to fear from science. So what, according to Buddhism, is wisdom? The highest wisdom is seeing that in reality all phenomena are incomplete, impermanent, and not self. This understanding is totally freeing and leads to the great security and happiness which is called nirvana. However, the Buddha doesn't speak too much about this level of wisdom. It is not wisdom if we simply believe what we are told. True wisdom is to directly see and understand for ourselves. At this level, then, wisdom is to keep an open mind rather than being closed-minded. Listening to other points of view rather than being bigoted. To carefully examine facts that contradict our beliefs, rather than burying our heads in the sand. To be objective rather than prejudiced and partisan. To take time about forming our opinions and beliefs, rather than just accepting the first or most emotional thing that is offered to us. And to always be ready to change our beliefs when facts that contradict them are presented to us. A person who does this is certainly wise and is certain to eventually arrive at true understanding. The path of just believing what you are told is easy. The Buddhist path requires courage, patience, flexibility, and intelligence. I think few people could do this. So what is the point of Buddhism if only a few can practice it? It is true that not everyone is ready for Buddhism yet, but to say, therefore, that we should teach a religion that is false but easily understandable, just so that everyone can practice it, is ridiculous. Buddhism aims at the truth, and if not everyone has the capacity to understand it yet, they perhaps will be ready for it in their next life. However, there are many who, with just the right words or encouragement, are able to increase their understanding. And it is for this reason that Buddhists gently and quietly strive to share the insights of Buddhism with others. The Buddha taught us out of compassion, and we teach others out of compassion. So we arrive at compassion. What, according to Buddhism, is compassion? Just as wisdom covers the intellectual or comprehending side of our nature, compassion covers the emotional or feeling side of our nature. Like wisdom, compassion is a uniquely human quality. Compassion is made up of two words, ko, meaning together, and passion, meaning a strong feeling. And this is what compassion is. When we see someone in distress and we feel their pain as if it were our own, and strive to eliminate or lessen their pain, then this is compassion. So all the best in human beings, all the Buddha-like qualities, like sharing, readiness to give comfort, sympathy, concern, and caring, all are manifestations of compassion. You will notice also that in the compassionate person, care and love towards others has its origins in care and love for oneself. We can really understand others when we really understand ourselves. We will know what's best for others when we know what's best for ourselves. We can feel for others when we feel for ourselves. So in Buddhism, one's own spiritual development blossoms quite naturally into concern for the welfare of others. The Buddha's life illustrates this very well. He spent 6 years struggling for his own welfare, after which he was able to be of benefit to the whole of mankind. So you are saying that we are best able to help others after we have helped ourselves. Isn't that a bit selfish? We usually see altruism, concern for others before oneself, as being the opposite of selfishness, concern for oneself before others. Buddhism does not see it as either one or the other, but rather as a blending of the two. Genuine self-concern will gradually mature into concern for others, as one sees that others are really the same as oneself. This is genuine compassion. Compassion is the most beautiful jewel in the crown of the Buddha's teaching. Number 8. Vegetarianism. Buddhists should be vegetarians, shouldn't they? Not necessarily. The Buddha was not a vegetarian. He did not teach his disciples to be vegetarians. And even today, there are many good Buddhists who are not vegetarians. But if you eat meat, you are indirectly responsible for the death of a creature. Isn't that breaking the first precept? It is true that when you eat meat, you are indirectly and partially responsible for killing a creature. But the same is true when you eat vegetables. The farmer has to spray his crop with insecticides and poisons so that the vegetables arrive on your dinner plates without holes in them. And once again, animals have been killed to provide the leather for your belt or handbag, oil for the soap you use, and 1,000 other products as well. It is impossible to live without, in some way, being indirectly responsible for the death of some other beings. And this is just another example of the first noble truth. Ordinary existence is suffering and unsatisfactory. When you take the first precept, you try to avoid being directly responsible for killing beings. Mahayana Buddhists don't eat meat. That is not correct. Mahayana Buddhism in China laid great stress on being vegetarian, but both the monks and laywomen of the Mahayana tradition in Japan and Tibet usually eat meat. But I still think that a Buddhist should be vegetarian. If there was a man who was a very strict vegetarian, but who was selfish, dishonest, and mean, and another man who was not a vegetarian, but who was thoughtful to others, honest, generous, and kind, which of these two people would be the better Buddhist? The person who was honest and kind. Why? Because such a person obviously has a good heart. Exactly. One who eats meat can have a pure heart, just as one who does not eat meat can have an impure heart. In the Buddhist teachings, the important thing is the quality of your heart, not the contents of your diet. Many Buddhists take great care never to eat meat, but they are not concerned about being selfish, dishonest, cruel, or jealous. They change their diet, which is easy to do, while neglecting to change their hearts, which is a difficult thing to do. So, whether you are a vegetarian or not, remember that the purification of the mind is the most important thing in Buddhism. Number 9. Good luck and fate. What did the Buddha teach about magic and fortune-telling? The Buddha considered such practices as fortune-telling, wearing magic charms for protection, fixing lucky sites for building, prophesizing, and fixing lucky days, to be useless superstitions, and he expressly forbids his disciples to practice such things. He calls all these things low arts. Whereas some religious men, while living off food provided by the faithful, make their living by such low arts, such wrong means of livelihood as palmistry, divining by signs, interpreting dreams, bringing good or bad luck, invoking the goddess of luck, picking the lucky site for a building, the monk Gotama refrains from such low arts, such wrong means of livelihood. Then why do people sometimes practice such things and believe in them? because of greed, fear, and ignorance. As soon as people understand the Buddhist teachings, they realize that a pure heart can protect them much better than bits of paper, bits of metal, and a few chanted words, and they no longer rely on such things. In the teachings of the Buddha, it is honesty, kindness, understanding, patience, forgiveness, generosity, loyalty, and other good qualities that truly protect you and give you true prosperity. But some lucky charms do work, don't they? I know a person who makes a living selling lucky charms. He claims that his charms can give good luck, prosperity, and he guarantees that you will be able to pick 3 numbers. But if what he says is true, then why isn't he himself a multimillionaire? If his lucky charms really work, then why doesn't he win the lottery week after week? The only luck he has is that there are people silly enough to buy his magic charms. Then, is there such a thing as luck? The dictionary defines luck as believing that whatever happens, either good or bad, to a person in the course of events, is due to chance, fate, or fortune. The Buddha denied this belief completely. Everything that happens has a specific cause or causes, and there must be some relationships between the cause and the effect. Becoming sick, for example, has specific causes. One must come into contact with germs, and one's body must be weak enough for the germs to establish themselves. There is a definite relationship between the cause, germs, and a weakened body, and the effect, sickness. Because we know that germs attack the organisms and give rise to sickness. But no relationship can be found wearing a piece of paper with words written on it and being rich or passing examinations. Buddhism teaches that whatever happens does so because of a cause or causes, and not due to luck, chance, or fate. People who are interested in luck are always trying to get something, usually more money and wealth. The Buddha teaches us that it is far more important to develop our hearts and minds. He says, being deeply learned and skilled, being well trained, and using well-spoken words. This is the best good luck. To support mother and father, to cherish wife and child, and to have a simple livelihood, this is the best good luck. Being generous, just, helping one's relatives, and being blameless in one's actions, this is the best good luck. To refrain from evil and from strong drink, and to be always steadfast in virtue, this is the best good luck. Reverence, humility, contentment, gratitude, and hearing the good Dharma, this is the best good luck. Number 10. Becoming a Buddhist. What you said so far is very interesting to me. How do I become a Buddhist? Once there was a man called Upali. He was the follower of another religion, and he went to the Buddha in order to argue with him and try to convert him. But after talking to the Buddha, he was so impressed that he decided to become a follower of the Buddha. But the Buddha said, "Make a proper investigation first. Proper investigation is good for a well-known person like yourself. Now I am even more pleased and satisfied when the Lord says to me, "Make a proper investigation first. For if members of another religion had secured me as a disciple, they would have paraded a banner all around the town saying, 'Upali has joined our religion.' But the Lord says to me, 'Make a proper investigation first.' Proper investigation is good for a well-known person like yourself." In Buddhism, understanding is the most important thing, and understanding takes time. So do not impulsively rush into Buddhism. Take your time, ask questions, consider carefully, and then make your decision. The Buddha was not interested in having large numbers of disciples. He was concerned that people should follow his teachings as a result of a careful investigation and consideration of facts. If I have done this and I find the Buddha's teaching acceptable, what would I do then if I wanted to become a Buddhist? It would be best to join a good temple or Buddhist group, support them, be supported by them, and continue to learn more about the Buddhist teachings. Then, when you are ready, you would formally become a Buddhist by taking the 3 refuges. What are the 3 refuges? A refuge is a place where people go when they are distressed or when they need safety and security. There are many types of refuge. When people are unhappy, they take refuge with their friends. When they are worried and frightened, they might take refuge in false hopes and beliefs. As they approach death, they might take refuge in the belief in an eternal heaven. But, as the Buddha says, none of these are true refuges because they do not give comfort and security based on reality. Truly, these are not safe refuges, not the refuge supreme, not the refuge whereby one is freed from all sorrow. But to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and to see with real understanding the 4 noble truths, suffering, the cause of suffering, the transcending of suffering, and the Noble Eightfold Path that leads to the transcending of suffering, this indeed is a safe refuge. It is the refuge supreme. It is the refuge whereby one is freed from all suffering. Taking refuge in the Buddha is a confident acceptance of the fact that one can become fully enlightened and perfected, just as the Buddha was. Taking refuge in the Dharma means understanding the 4 noble truths and basing one's life on the Noble Eightfold Path. Taking refuge in the Sangha means looking for support, inspiration, and guidance from all who walk the Noble Eightfold Path. Doing this, one becomes a Buddhist and thus takes the first step on the path towards nirvana. What changes have taken place in your life since you first took the 3 refuges? Like countless millions of others over the last 2,500 years, I have found that the Buddha's teachings have made sense out of a difficult world. They have given meaning to what was a meaningless life. They have given me a humane and compassionate ethics with which to lead my life, and they have shown me how I can attain a state of purity and perfection in the next life. A poet in ancient India once wrote of the Buddha, "To go to him for refuge to sing his praise, to do him honor, and to abide in his Dharma is to act with understanding. I agree with these words completely. I have a friend who is always trying to convert me to his religion. I am not really interested in his religion, and I have told him so, but he won't leave me alone. What can I do? The first thing you must understand is that this person is not really your friend. A true friend accepts you as you are and respects your wishes. I suspect that this person is merely pretending to be your friend so he can convert you. When people try to impose their will on you, they are certainly not friends. But he says he wants to share his religion with me. Sharing your religion with others is a good thing, but I suggest that your friend doesn't know the difference between sharing and imposing. If I have an apple, I offer you half, and you accept my offer, then I have shared with you. But if you say to me, "Thank you, but I have already eaten," and I keep insisting that you take half the apple until you finally give in to my pressure, this can hardly be called sharing. People like your friend try to disguise their bad behavior by calling it sharing, love, or generosity. But, by whatever name they call it, their behavior is still just rude, bad manners, and selfish. So how can I stop him? It is simple. Firstly, be clear in your mind what you want. Secondly, clearly and briefly tell him so. Thirdly, when he asks you questions like, "What is your belief on this matter?" or "Why don't you wish to come to the meeting with me?" clearly, politely, and persistently repeat your first statement. "Thank you for the invitation, but I would rather not come." "Why not?" "That is really my business. I would rather not come." "But there will be many interesting people there." "I am sure there will be, but I would rather not come." "I am inviting you because I care about you." "I am glad you care about me, but I would rather not come." If you clearly, patiently, and persistently repeat yourself, and refuse to allow him to get you involved in a discussion, he will eventually give up. It is a shame that you have to do this, but it is very important for people to learn that they cannot impose their beliefs or wishes upon others. Should Buddhists try to share the Dharma with others? Yes, they should. And I think most Buddhists understand the difference between sharing and imposing. If people ask you about Buddhism, tell them. You can even tell them about the Buddha's teachings without their asking. But if by either their words or their actions they let you know that they are not interested, accept that and respect their wishes. It is also important to remember that you let people know about the Dharma far more effectively through your actions than through preaching to them. Show people the Dharma by always being considerate, kind, tolerant, upright, and honest. Let the Dharma shine forth through your speech and actions. If each of us, you and I, know the Dharma thoroughly, practice it fully, and share it generously with others, we can be of great benefit to ourselves and others also.